let us bring in Kellyanne Conway. She ran President-elect Trump's campaign and will serve as his White House counselor. Kellyanne, Happy New Year. Good to see you.
Happy New Year to both of you.
Yesterday, Republicans in the House made news. They took this independent office that was set up to oversee and police corruption and scandal in Congress. They stripped its independence and put it under the control of Congress, the very group they're supposed to police. Donald Trump ran a campaign, said, I'm going to drain the swamp in Washington. Doesn't this do the opposite, and how does he feel about it?
It does not, Matt, because I don't want your viewers to be left with the impression that there's no mechanism to investigate what I would call consumer complaints, constituent complaints. There's a new office, and this new office will really cut down on the overzealousnness. There have been 100
Is that office completely independent of Congress?
The office could be. They're going to, the full Congress has to
now.
vote on it today. This was just a particular committee voting by secret ballot, but the full Congress will have an opportunity to speak out on this and to vote today.
Will Donald Trump weigh in on this? Excuse me. Will he tell them how he feels about it?
He is not at the moment. I'm sure that when he feels the urge to weigh in on something, he certainly does. But let me make very clear: if a constituent has a complaint, they can still lodge that complaint. They just can't do it anonymously. And many of these people, members and their staffers who have been under investigation, have complained about their due process rights being violated and being compromised. So they need protections as well.
Let's talk about Obamacare, because number one for the new Congress is to repeal Obamacare. Is the Republican Congress, Kellyanne, willing to take ownership of this issue, and have they come up with something to replace Obamacare?
Yes and yes, Katie. Actually, one of the big priorities for President-elect Trump and this Republican Congress would be to make it easier for Americans to purchase health care across state lines, the way you would buy auto insurance, for example. Currently, you can't do that. We also were talking about a more patient-centric free market system where you have a health savings account. You own it, it has your name on it, and you can control your health care spending for you and your family. This particularly impacts women who are the chief health care officers of their households.
There are some aspects of the Affordable Care Act that Donald Trump has in fact praised. Coverage for people with pre-existing conditions, for example, allowing kids to stay on their parents' health care plans until they're 26 years old. Is he committed to maintaining those parts of the law, and how will he do that without the individual mandate to pay for them?
So he is committed to retaining those pieces that his advisors will say are working. He'll be, I think, talking to his HHS Secretary Designee, Congressman Tom Price, about it, and other experts in the field. It's actually an issue where the president-elect has received a great deal of counsel. I was at in Palm Beach with him last week for meetings when it's been public that he met with really the top healthcare experts in the country, the heads of the Mayo Clinic and Brigham and Young and certainly the Cleveland Clinic. He's getting a Johns Hopkins.
And following those meetings, is he still committed to those things?
He's committed to repealing and replacing Obamacare with something that's more fair to people. You know, Katie, we hear from people about this issue almost more than anything else, this in veterans care. And what they say are two quick things. One is, I thought I was going to get better coverage, but I've just been cut, my hours were cut down to 25 to not get that coverage from an employer, so now I have 2 jobs, no coverage. Number two, it's people who thought that they had great coverage. Now they feel like their premiums have increased, their choices at access are decreased, and the quality is less.
Real quickly, when's he going to have a press conference? He promised one in December to talk about conflict of interest with his business. Last time he held one was 159 days ago. He famously, at that point, urged Russian hackers to look for Hillary Clinton's emails. When is he going to hold a press conference? And when is he going to divulge what he says he knows that others don't know about that Russian hacking?
Well, I'll take the second part first. He will have a briefing by our top intelligence officials early this week here in New York, Matt and Katie, at which time he will perhaps learn more about what they say. We're tired of the insinuations and the blind quotes and people really leaking to the press rather than dealing directly with what may or may not have happened with the hacking.
But will he tell the intelligence officials what he knows that others don't know?
He may, but I think every president, every president-elect ought to know things that the rest of us don't know, particularly when it comes to our intelligence.
And is he getting that information from General Michael Flynn, his pick to be National Security Advisor? Because he does have close ties with Vladimir Putin. In fact, we have this photo from December of 2015 that shows him at a dinner with Putin. Is that where he's getting this information, Kellyanne, that other people don't know?
He is getting information from any number of sources. He's the president-elect. Katie, he receives a regular presidential daily briefings. That's a product. But in addition to that particular product, the president-elect receives intelligence briefings briefings from many different sources. I would push back on the idea that someone sitting at a dinner with someone else has, quote, close ties and a coziness that Nancy Pelosi is trying to talk about. Rex Tillerson, our Secretary of State designee, is an amazing pick because it's somebody who's done business in 50 countries or so, in Yemen, in Russia certainly, and somebody who understands how to negotiate and how to say no to some of these leaders when necessary.
Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thanks again.
Thanks
Happy New Year. Nice to have you here.
Happy, healthy, yes.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.